This is Joanna Foster. She is a fertility energy worker. Thank you for joining me. And I'd appreciate if you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up becoming a healer.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much. So, a little bit about me. I am a mom of three. I have kids who are 8, 6, and 3 years old, two boys and a girl. I have a wonderful relationship with my husband. It's been a long journey to get to this point, but we're in a really good space right now where we love and respect each other. We still have our obstacles, but that's what we're going through. Together, and I bring all of that up because I am a fertility healer. So what it means is that I live it, breathe it, and I completely research it and get drawn to everything that has to do with the body and the mental state, the emotional state, and the spiritual state. I have a really amazing playground to for things to come in and trigger me and help me look and research further into my own life, into my children's lives. And while I work those out, those issues out, I learn a lot more and I get deeper and deeper and deeper into, and started off completely in the spiritual realm. It started with my firstborn, who's 8, and I was trying to understand how to help him better. I was acting like a traditional mother, so meaning I was doing the things that my parents had done with me, and I was very concerned about what he looked like in terms, not his actual face, but how his behavior came across, how he was perceived and how he was out in the world and how he represented me. And I saw my very, very happy boy get really sad and down on himself pretty early on. And it hurt my heart. And then I saw him starting to really struggle. And then he was diagnosed eventually with ADHD. Mm-hmm. And so prior to the diagnosis, we were already, on a journey, trying to find out why he was coming home saying, why am I bad? Why don't I like myself? So it started there with him. And it led me to my own. That was really from his age 2 to my daughter's birth was really my own personal, just all about me trying to understand all of the things, all of the constructs, the systems that I had in place to help me navigate my world and understand my world. And then once and then I did have another son in there, and that really helped me compare the two boys. And by the time my second son came around, I was a little bit more at ease being a mother, a little bit more at ease about feeling criticized and judged. I felt like it wasn't as important as the health of my child, mental health. And then by the time I was pregnant with my daughter, it's almost like everything was ready for me to have my awakening. And that's when it happened. So again, we were with a spiritual healer, and that spiritual healer was guiding a group session. And during the group session, I know 100% my daughter led me to an incredible world where children were honored, were loved, and it was exactly the kind of world I wanted and desperately felt was important to have on our world. So it began this almost neediness in the beginning to have it here. And so that was about 3.5 years ago. And my journey since that 3.5 years, it started, so I had that experience with my daughter. Right away, my inner eye was opened. And almost immediately after, I worked with a friend of mine. So it was like a switch went on. And immediately I could see her blocks, feel her blocks, helped her get pregnant. She has a long story. She tried and tried and tried, and she had her session with me. Next day she was pregnant. And I told her I could see her daughter. I knew what was happening. So that was the beginning of it for me. And then while I was still pregnant with my daughter. And so then I just kept going in that way. I just kept finding people who, I mean, when you really have this desire, this passion, people start getting drawn to you and they want to work with you. And I was absolutely just in the dark trying things out. And I don't want to say trying things out because it was very clear almost up front, but I was starting to work with people. But I still definitely had and have, but still definitely had a lot of blocks for myself. Like, I was really wrapped up in patriarchy still. I really felt like certain things had value where other things didn't have value. And so I still have a lot to go through, but that's kind of dissipating now. I'm much more at ease at seeing everybody who, whether they have any kind of disability, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, it doesn't really matter. I can see their gifts now, and their value. Whereas before it was like, how much do you make? Do you have a good last name? What's your job? I mean, things that are really constructs that were really controlling, really debilitating for a long time. So now I'm more into that more spiritual space. But that said, because I have and live and breathe with children, I also am still searching, still trying to find out, they are on their own journey. So they pick up things and they're doing their own things, and I do not have control over that. And they come home, let's say they come home they're sick with something, and I have to figure out, okay, how do I help them through that? And I'm not talking a virus or a bug, I'm talking a parasite or something like that, where, you actually have to help. So that has led me to really, really wanting to work on the body, being in the physical world. We are in the physical world. So lately I've been spending a lot of time with my clients actually dealing with physical problems in the body that then translate into, it's support, right? It supports your mental. Obviously, if you're helping your body to heal, you're also helping your body to regulate their hormones, lower your cortisol, your stress, and that leads to your body having more energy to fight other things, and then that helps you then, maybe you can then start to work on some emotional traumas and deal with that, and then your spiritual self kind of takes care of itself as long as you get out of your own way. But we all put a lot of stuff in our own way.
Have you taken any formal classes?
I have, and not specifically, some for myself. So I've taken energy medicine classes. I'm certified in energy medicine, and I've done hypnotherapy. So both a general and then a master class. And the hypnotherapy I did specifically for the certification, because the way I work isn't really hypnotherapy. Yeah, I mean, I have my Reiki 1, 2, 3. What else do I have? I'm certified in Seraphim Wisdom. I mean, yeah, I've got some certifications beyond that, but I would say that the energy medicine and the hypnotherapy were really the two that I've done since starting formally doing this work.
So if I booked a session with you, what would it look like?
It would look like you would lie. So there's two ways that I work, either through Zoom or in person. If it's Zoom, I would close my eyes. You may or may not. And I would just start talking to you, asking you questions, and your words are almost like, it's almost like a wavelength into you, and then I just will start to see and feel what's going on, where the tensions are, and we just start to talk about it, tease it out, and we end up going to ages between 0 and 8, and sometimes we'll talk about past lives, ancestors, all of that will come through, but what I start to feel is what was happening in those early formative years when our wavelengths were it was different than it is today. When we're little, and we say, children are like sponges because they're actually in a meditative state all the time. So they don't have that kind of discernment that we get around 8. That's when your conscious mind, you start to realize, oh, there's this barrier. I'm me, you're you. And they start to create that distance. But prior to that, they're really just in the world and absorbing everything. So what happens if something, let's say, something, and trauma can mean many different things, but let's pick something that's not, considered super traumatic to most people. But let's say, you're in a really loving home, and then all of a sudden you break one of the dishes, and your mom has just had no sleep that night. She's exhausted. She's just so angry that now she has to clean this up. And instead of being like saying to you, I'm tired, I don't want to deal with this, now you've broken the dishes, she just looks at you and goes, you're careless. You don't take care of things. You really made a mess here, and so that gets embedded into you. And you take that and you take it literally. And that's what it means by being in that meditative state. You take things literally. You don't see the context, and you might carry that on, and maybe you will create a completely opposite persona to deal with that. You're super organized, always on time. You always make sure everything looks neat and tidy, so that you create an environment where you get love. And it all comes back to wanting to be adored, loved, appreciated. So you create those kinds of habits and personality and behaviors. And what it might also do with fertility is if, let's say you then start to think, oh, bodily fluids, that's messy. Oh, that's, and it's not, we're talking about fertility. So it may then make you think you don't want to have that connection, or, you want a child, of course, but you don't want to make a mess. You don't want the delivery. Maybe you're afraid of pooping when you deliver, things like that. Like you start to get tight, to create tension in your hips, create tension in your body, and in fact, you don't get pregnant. I feel like that one scenario is not going to lead to infertility, but I'm trying to create, how it can get to that. So I will start to feel you out and start to sense, oh, you've got something going on there. As you talk, you won't know, you yourself won't know the original source of it, but as you talk, I will see it. I will see, it's almost like a little vision, a little scene that will start to play out, and I will say, what was going on when you were this age? Did this happen? Were you feeling this? And then, but as we start to look at that, sometimes I'll bring you back as the adult. Usually when you're a child, you want to be saved. We don't realize that the person that's going to come save us is our adult selves. So you become that savior to yourself. You become that adult self. You go back and we help recontextualize and give a voice to that situation, to you. You may be in shock at that moment. So that, I would say, is actually a more aggressive scenario, because what can also happen is simply me, even though I'm not physically with you, using energetic hands to go through your body and just creating and just seeing, almost like stones in a river, just flicking it out, getting rid of those blocks. I think that's what I wrote about in my write-up, but just doing it all, and we don't actually have to go back to the moment. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't.
Can you tell us about a difficult healing situation that you help someone with, so that people can see, the depth of things you can help with?
It's not, I don't think it's what you would expect. You might think it's real traumas and so on, but the truth is, when you've had a very traumatic childhood, there will be some blocks and stuff like that, and your memory will, but you do know. And so when we go into that stuff, you're aware, and you're probably prepared for it. The more difficult healing sessions are the things that you don't know. the things that you don't realize that you have bought into that are affecting you deeply in your loving relationship with your partner. What comes up a lot with partners, especially right now, I've noticed, even in the last 6 months compared to 2 years ago, is this sense of resentment and inequality. And I know that, it means different things for different people. Not everyone wants their husband to all of a sudden be home, cook, clean. They don't. But what it can mean really and truly is being valued, really being seen for the work that you do. Because sometimes sitting and holding space and not cooking, not cleaning, not working is really, it's hard to do, it's priceless, and it goes against our training from childhood, which is, you get up and you do and you work, and I 100% see it in my own family life. It's always that idea of I go, but holding space and being valued for holding space, that's a really womb thing, a really feminine thing, being a vessel in an energetic sense. But not to hold people's stuff, just to hold space so that people can do their own thing. But whatever it might mean to you, but that's the hardest stuff to do and to get through, is that once, because that will come up. I don't seek things to heal. It will come forward when it, you essentially are bringing it to the table. And then once it's there, then we work with it. And sometimes that can go deep, those feelings of resentment and anger, that anger that has been quiet for a long time. And, oh, I'm not an angry person. Oh, you are.
Wow.
You're angry. Yeah.
Can you tell us about your proudest healing moment?
Yeah, I can tell a couple. I think my proudest healing moments, I would say really they're self-healing moments. When the proud isn't the right word really, but more like just the gratitude ran deep when I was definitely open to something else, but working with someone, when you get to sexual abuse and there have been blocks and that person gets a chance to realize it wasn't their fault, and I don't mean that in a logical sense, because of course as an adult logically you do know, but I mean on a real deep level where you realize it wasn't your fault. That's very satisfying. And so this particular situation came up because there was also prior memories that had been blocked that came up. I love it when these are the mundane things when I'm with someone and I'm like, oh, who's coming in the door right now? Oh, my husband. There. Like, tell them to go away. Like I don't see them, but I can feel them coming into the room. It's almost like I'm right there with you, and I like that. I loved helping a woman deliver her baby. So I was texting and working through her husband, and I was in her body with her, and I knew where the pain points were, and I was like, you just press there. And she had a C-section before. She really wanted a vaginal birth, and she was living in the States, so her statistics weren't in her favor, and they were really pushing for it in that moment to try and get her to do a C-section, and she was able to stand up for herself and have a voice, and it's because of the prior work we had done, and also that in the moment how I was able to see and feel just how to get her through that. That was really, I like that. I like that people get their story, that they get to do what it is that they want. And having a child is really part of it for some, not everybody, and I don't know why this is coming up right now, but I feel like for me, for my family, the next steps we're looking in a few years' time is to adopt. And I feel like that's also really part of people's story. Having a baby vaginally is not the one and only way at all.
Fascinating. So one last question. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, I guess what I would leave everyone with is just, it's a feeling. Being in stillness is a saying, but it really is a feeling. And the tool that has helped me the most in my life, in my sex life, to get personal, and in getting through a lot of my own stuff, because I have it, is breathing. And it's not just regular breath work, but really slowly inhaling into a thought and then holding it there and just allowing your breath and just intention, magic, just allow it to happen, and then slowly breathing out. And doing that at just enough times, if you think about it on a physical level, it does help lower your heart rate. It does help to balance your hormones. There is one other thing that's coming up right now, and that is that we really are in a toxic world. So to do anything that you can to minimize the intake of toxins and heavy metals and so on, you do want to think about that. But if you do have all those sugar cravings and so on, and I hear you, I do too, to maybe think what are the underlying causes of that, and to maybe do a detox and start there sometimes. Yeah, when you want to get pregnant.
Well, thank you very much for your time. So Joanna Foster is in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and her contact information will be on the website. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye.